Hey, about 2 years ago, I was doing research for a sermon I was working on. And as I was flipping through my Bible, I saw Jesus' golden rule, as it is famously called, but it was in a translation of the Bible that I had never seen before. And here is how it read. Therefore, treat other people in the same way you would like to be treated. And because I wasn't making much progress on the sermon, I grabbed my journal, turned to a new page in it, and I posed the question, how would I most like to be treated in every situation in my life by strangers, colleagues, friends, family, kids, church people, non-church people? I had never actually sat down and asked myself that question before. Maybe you all have, I hadn't. So here's a blank sheet of paper in my journal. No one's ever going to read it. I can write anything I want to in it as I answer the question, how do I most wish people would treat me as I walk through my everyday world? So after considerable reflection, here's what I concluded. Number one, I would like to be treated first and foremost with respect. And then number two, maybe kindness. And number three, I would like to be treated fairly. Now I could have had at the top of my list, I want to be treated like royalty, like a rock star or something. Never really crossed my mind. I could have concluded that I want to be treated with sloppy hugs and kisses on both cheeks. You know me better than that. But this was a very important exercise for me to do because the golden rule of Jesus basically says, decide, take some time, sit down, think it through. Decide how you would most like to be treated every day by anybody, and then you go out and treat every single person who crosses your path that exact same way. And Jesus is saying that would change the world if we all did that. So on the top of my list, I wrote respect, which meant I had to do some homework to understand what it really means to respect others. Here's a summary of what I learned. Respect is holding the other person in high regard, no matter who they are, holding them in high regard and treating them accordingly. Respect is valuing people and then treating them as valuable. Respect is to esteem someone highly and again to treat them accordingly. So if I want to be treated with respect, which was on the top of my list, it necessarily becomes my mission in life, according to the golden rule of Jesus, to treat every single person I meet with respect, high regard, valuable. 1 Peter 2:17 says it straightforwardly if the golden rule is too fuzzy for you. It says, show proper respect to everyone. This is not a suggestion in the Bible. This is an imperative. All of you, show proper respect to everyone. Or as the sermon title for today is, respect everyone always. But the million-dollar question is, how do you show respect to another person? How do you hold other people in high regard and treat them accordingly? I started working on this sermon last Sunday morning, and I got right about to this point, and I got stuck. I got stuck on the question of what are very practical ways that we can treat other people with respect. Well, no worries. I get stuck on writing sermons from time to time. I prayed. I went for a walk. I came back to sit down. I tried all the rest of Monday morning, all Monday afternoon, and all Monday evening, made absolutely no progress. I could not sort this out. So I got up Tuesday morning very early, prayed, and then I thought I would read every thoughtful and scholarly article on the internet about the subject of respect. And I nearly passed out when I saw how little there is written on this subject matter. Almost nothing. Check it out for yourself. Now, I had to put the sermon down Tuesday at noon because I had to speak at a conference that I had already been long committed to. So driving to the conference, I suddenly realized that the rest of my entire week is booked solid with meetings. I have no sermon, and I have no time left to struggle with this little one that I had started. And I'm telling you, my anxiety started to go up and up and up. As I pulled up to a stoplight, I realized this has really never happened to me before in 41 years. I seriously thought of the first time having to stand before you and tell you that I have no sermon for the kickoff of this fantastic series. And my next thought was, I can't do that. You deserve a sermon. And others of you need a sermon. So, but I'm out of time. So I just said to myself there, sitting at the stoplight, I'm dead. I'm just dead. Then I looked up and saw what the truck in front of me at the stoplight was loaded with. Guess what it was loaded with? Caskets. And I thought, how convenient. God provided. I'm dead. I can just crawl right up into one of those things. Problem solved. I got up Wednesday morning, and well before dawn, and I prayed on my knees for God to show me how to respect everyone always so I could tell you. And I wanted this to be in very, very practical ways. And by His grace, He gave me some material, so you're going to get the sermon you deserve. The first kind of idea that God reminded me of is that we don't make our arrival on planet Earth as fully developed, respectful people. When the doctor gives us that first slap on the backside, we don't honor that doctor for helping us come into the world safely. We say to ourselves, who gave that guy a license? Why is he slapping me? When I get older, I'm calling DCFS. When we're toddlers, we don't automatically hold our brothers and sisters in high regard. We don't treat them respectfully when we're young kids. We grab their ice cream cones, steal their toys as often as we can get away with it. Who gives a rip about respecting our siblings when we're little kids, right? Few of us in junior high school lavished respect on our parents and teachers when they were telling us what the rules were and what was good for us. What I'm saying is that people must learn over time how to become respectful. From my life experience, this is a lifelong process. So with the time remaining, and with your permission, I'd like to give each of you some private lessons on how you can learn to respect everyone always. And the first lesson, if you learn it well and retain it, it'll serve as the foundation for all the other lessons to follow. So here we go. Number one, first private lesson. Emblazon on your brain once and for all that every person who crosses your path is an image bearer of the Most High God. You know this. I've taught you this for decades. You have never locked eyes with someone who does not matter to God, not even once. Every single person you greet every single day is someone for whom Christ voluntarily shed His blood. The worst person you know is one prayer away from repenting and becoming your eternal brother or sister. If you can keep these values forefront in your mind as you move through your world, it'll help you treat everyone you meet with high regard, because the Most High God created them, breathed life into their bodies, and stamped His image on every single person you meet. Let me say it one more way. You've heard me say it often. God really only treasures one thing in this vast cosmos, just one thing, and that's people. But He treasures them, every single one of them. So every person you interact with every single day is someone God treasures. Gang, this worldview is the bedrock foundation of learning how to respect everyone always. And once it's emblazoned in your mind and heart and soul, it becomes so much easier to treat people with value and high regard, because you know to the core of your being that they do have great value to God, and He holds them in high regard. I once took an overseas trip to a very, very tough part of the world with an older Christian gentleman who I greatly admired. As fate would have it, one of our connecting flights got delayed for several hours in an airport in a very bad country with chaos all around and That's all I want to say about it. But the airport was jammed with people. I didn't understand the language or the culture. We had several hours to kill. I said to this older Christian gentleman, I'm going to pay my way into some lounge and I'm going to pound out some emails. I said, you want to come along? And he said, no, I'm fine right here. About an hour later, I came back to where I had left him, and I saw that he was playing with some little kids in a play area off to the side of the concourse. He was smiling from ear to ear. This older, wiser gentleman knew that these young kids were growing up in a tough, poverty-stricken, chaotic country. And he also knew that despite all they had going against them, they were treasures of the Most High God. So instead of pounding out emails, he thought he would show value to these little kids who he would never see again and just hang out with them in the play area. I have never forgotten that image and how much I wanted to become a man like that someday. Lesson number 2, respectful people learn how to differ with people without demonizing them. They learn how to differ with people without demonizing them. Respectful people can have spirited debates with others without having to draw blood. They can dislike the other person's position on an issue while still holding the person in very high regard. And I repeat, this is a learned skill. In my view, we as a country are losing this capability. And the result is molten lava rivers of vitriol spewing all across our land. And its long-term effects are far darker than most of us think. I learned a valuable lesson along these lines from former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice. I was in a hotel conference room in downtown New York City. I was watching 2 men debate her position on an issue. The debate started civilly enough, but soon the 2 men went from differing with Condoleezza to devaluing her personally, and then later on to demonizing her in a public forum. Their decibel levels went higher and higher and their behavior lower and lower. Condoleezza would maintain her composure, and then when she would try to break in to argue her point, she would start by saying, gentlemen, with all due respect. Gentlemen, with all due respect. And then she would argue her point civilly and sanely. I loved her self-control, and I loved that little phrase, and I began to use it in the animated conversations that I get drawn into once in a while. I just remind myself, keep my tone civil. No, excuse me, with all due respect. A few years after that, Condoleezza agreed to speak at the Global Summit. In the back office, after she spoke, I told her that I borrowed her little phrase, with all due respect. She laughed and she said she mainly uses that phrase as a 2-second timeout prayer so that she, in fact, will stay respectful, and that she will stay respectful with tone and spirit even if others are taking the low road. I suggest you try using this in animated conversations. Excuse me, with all due respect. My point here again is that we all must learn, we all must train ourselves to grow into people who will respect everyone always. And with proper training, I assure you, you can become a person who can disagree with others and stop well short of demonizing them. You can become someone who can disagree with someone, but disagree agreeably. I know you can. Lesson 3, respectful people discipline themselves to believe the best about the other. 1 Corinthians 13:7 says, love believes the best. Lynn and I learned one of the biggest lessons of our lives about this subject matter when we were invited to an event in Moscow in the mid-'80s when the Cold War with the Soviet Union was still in full force. The U.S. and the Soviets were going at it. There was all this talk about a possible world war. You'll remember this time. Before we went on that trip, we decided we needed to read up on the Soviet people. So we did a lot of reading, and we learned through the reading that the Russians were a war-mongering society that lived for the day when they could attack the U.S. with nuclear weapons and destroy our society. After arriving in Moscow, Lynn and I had a few hours to kill before the meeting, so we took a walk in Gorky Park in the center of Moscow, which is just like Central Park is to downtown New York City. What we witnessed the next 90 minutes taught us a lifelong lesson about respect and about believing the best instead of believing the worst about the other. In the park that day were hundreds of Russian soldiers on leave without weapons, but they were with their families or with their girlfriends, and they would walk with their arms around their spouses or girlfriends, and if they had families, there were dozens and dozens of young Russian soldiers carrying little girls with bows in their hair, and so some of the dads were floating little boats on the pond in Gorky Park, or they were, playing some kind of soccer on the grass in the park. Some of the soldiers were changing babies' diapers to give the moms a break, but the joy of family was so palpable on the faces of those young Russian soldiers in Gorky Park. Lynn and I turned to each other and almost said it at the exact same time. They're just like us. They love their wives and kids. They want to watch their families grow up. They want peace just like we do. When we got back from that trip, something had flipped over completely inside both of us. Never again, we vowed, would we allow ourselves to be suckered into believing the worst about a people group before we even met them. Never again would we disrespect a whole country without a personal inspection. It's been a lifelong lesson for us. So, a little over a year ago, when I went to Vietnam to speak at a global summit, I trained my mind to believe the best about the Vietnamese people. Because when I was in late high school and college, we were at war with Vietnam. And many of my high school friends were killed in Vietnam. Many people in this church served in the war in Vietnam. 19 years we traded bullets with Vietnam. And I was going there for the first time. My college roommate had his legs blown up in Vietnam. So on the flight over, I kept saying to myself, you know what? I want to believe the best. I want to believe that a people group can change over 50 years. I want to keep an open mind about this and not go into Vietnam like I went into Russia, 30 years prior to that. And when I went into Hanoi in Vietnam, spent a couple days there, I found a peace-loving people who were very welcoming to Americans. I couldn't describe why that change had happened. I just felt it everywhere I went. Next year, we'll try to hold 3 to 4 global summits in Vietnam, and God is working in the churches. I spoke in some churches there that God is working in. Can I challenge you afresh? Believe the best about the other. Go into new situations with openness and humility instead of defensiveness and suspicion. It'll help you be respectful. Now, how about 3 very quick back-to-back lessons about respecting others? Staccato style. Hope you can speed up with me for just a few seconds. Lessons 4, 5, and 6. Here we go. Lesson 4. Respectful people don't interrupt others. So don't interrupt me now. Respectful people don't interrupt others and will never dominate a conversation. Why? Because respectful people actually want to hear the thoughts and feelings of the other. So they don't interrupt them. They say, finish. Tell me the whole thing, because I'm actually interested. I hold you in high regard. I want to know your thoughts and feelings. They don't dominate the conversation. They stop talking and they say, now I've presented my view. How do you feel about that? Respectful people draw the conversation out of others because they hold other people in high regard. Lesson 5, respectful people guard their volume levels and they refuse to use incendiary words and phrases to make their point. Proverbs 15:1, you should probably all memorize it. A soft answer will turn away wrath, but harsh words will make tempers flare. Part of what has saddened so many of us during the last 18 months of our election cycle has been the frequent usage of divisive, hurtful, foul, and outright offensive words and phrases in the political discourse. This has happened on both sides of the aisle. But people who are serious about growing in their ability to respect everyone always, they sit down one day and they decide to expunge certain words, terms, and phrases from their vocabulary forever. Why do they do this? Because they realize that these words and phrases are fundamentally disrespectful. They don't help the discussion, and they damage people's souls. So they stop and they say, you know what, there's a half a dozen words that I am never, ever going to use again. I'm just not going to be that kind of person ever again. And I'm going to use words differently. At some point in time, all of us have to decide what kind of person we want to be as we move ahead in our lives, as we're building our families and businesses and all that. Do we want to be uniters or dividers, lovers or haters, builders or destroyers of other people? Somewhere in this election cycle, it became cool to announce that saying things with political correctness was no longer necessary, which seemed to me to simply open the floodgates of foul, disrespectful words and phrases and the lowest level of public discourse in my lifetime. And the scriptures are still our guide in this, gang. Ephesians 4:29. I want to let this sink into your spirit. We're not going to rush this verse. Let no unwholesome word ever come out of your mouth. Say it again. Let no unwholesome words ever come out of our mouths. Ever. And then it changes and it says, you know, the only words that should ever come out of our mouths are words that will build up other people. Wow. 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 Can you imagine what the quality of discourse would be in our country and all over the world if everybody would submit to this single verse about respecting others? Let no unwholesome word come out of your mouth, only words that will build up others. So reviewing lesson 5, respectful people guard their volume levels and they refuse to use incendiary words and phrases to make their point. And this decision covers personal conversation, public debate, and, get ready for this, social media. Social media has become a war zone with no rules. And Christ followers use unthinkable words and phrases and express themselves in disrespectful, non-Christian ways because there's a blind spot in their heads. They don't think the scriptures apply to social media discourse. I ask you to bring all of this, all of your discourse, spoken, written, social media, under the guidance and supervision of God's word. That you would let no unwholesome word come out of your mouth, come off your fingertips on a laptop, off the written pen, whatever. Only words that would build up others. It would change our world. Lesson 6, respectful people, get ready, are courteous all the time to everyone, everywhere. I was thinking about this week. The classiest, the most sophisticated, the people in this world that I respect the very most are all inordinately courteous and kind. Some of these people are in high position, have huge responsibility, great big jobs, and they're the ones that open the doors for others. They offer the best view at the restaurant table. I always notice that these people that I respect the most pay inordinate attention to people that others don't even notice. Servers in restaurants, doormen and women at hotels, airline personnel behind the counter, cashiers at convenience stores. People I respect the most are courteous to everyone, always. Hey, 5,600 of you courteously gave of your time, courteously filled this auditorium Friday night for our special needs kids performance. And I want to tell you, I had an out-of-town commitment that I couldn't break. It's the first production that I've ever missed, but I watched it via laptop. And tears came to my eyes when the camera scanned the crowd and this place was full. And you clapped every time for these kids. And you gave a standing ovation at the end that just was sustained. And I was like, oh, gang. That was one of the most beautiful illustrations, real time, of respect. Because these kids get disrespected all the time. And you gave them a standing ovation. And I commend you and bless you for it. Speaking of courtesy, I've traveled with Gary Schwamline, who's the president of the Willow Creek Association, for almost 20 years now. Probably have more than 1 million miles together on airplanes around the world. We leave this Thursday for another trip. But my respect for Gary is through the roof, because you get to know someone when you travel with them. Gary helps elderly people in international airports who he will never see again pull their luggage through the airport and helps them check in. Gary helps struggling people lift their luggage up to the overhead compartments on airplanes, even when he knows it's not going to fit up there. Blows my mind. And every time I see him with that extraordinary courtesy, I respect him more, and I say, I want to become someone that courteous and kind, and I've got some growing to do there. But you can become more courteous and kind if you respect other people and see them as valuable and you help them out. Lesson number 7, respectful people refuse to stereotype others. No matter how tempting it is to do so, and sometimes it's very tempting, respectful people won't bite on that temptation. They value people, so they treat them as individual treasures of the Most High God, one at a time. No stereotyping, ever. Number 8, respectful people apologize immediately when they're wrong. You see, if you value other people and you learn that you've offended one, the right thing to do, the respectful thing to do, is to go to them right away and to say the 2 words that are so hard to say. I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? But it's what respectful people do. Number 9, respectful people form opinions